Watching this morning on ITV, that was of stars with the news report on TMI. Of course, time to go straight to our first talking point, where, as usual, every Monday morning, we take a look at the world of aviation with your number one aviation freak, a man who also doubles as an licensed estate surveyor and valuer, Mr. Godwin Ike. Very good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Joe.
You're welcome.
Thank you. How was your weekend?
It's beautiful, and yours?
Wonderful as always.
Yeah. Okay, today's program, we're going to be looking at a Lion crash system. Of course, we started it 2 weeks ago. Last week we did the part 2. Today we shall be doing the part 3 of that Lion Air crash 610 continues. Okay, yeah, let's quickly look at this. And as a way of starting, let's do a brief of recap for the benefit of those that didn't watch the 1 and 2, and so that they can quickly catch up.
It was on the 29th of October, local time, about 7 or rather 6:45 a.m. Lion Air, brand new aircraft, one of the new series known as MAX, 737 MAX 8, the latest of Boeing's 737 series, and the airplane had on board about 189 passengers and crew, and was heading out from Jakarta to one of the northeastern cities of Indonesia. And then 13 minutes into the flight, the pilots radioed to say that they wanted to return to Jakarta, that they were having technical issues, and they were permitted. But then, shortly after, the plane disappeared from the radar. And witnesses on one of the oil platforms, inside the Java River, one of those offshore oil platforms, said that they saw a plane that just came straight nose down, broke into shreds in water. You know the nature of water. Anything that falls on top of it, gets resisted with this equal amount of force with which he came in, and so that's known as upthrust, in physics. And so the plane broke into shreds, tore even its crewman contents into shreds, and then the rest is history that we are following right now. So in part 1 and 2, we've talked about the airplane, said to have had some issues in the previous day flight. It was said to be a roller coaster, and the plane was losing altitude and gaining altitude, losing and gaining altitude, and so they managed it, returned to Jakarta, and then engineers were called in. They took a look at it, did a few maintenance work, certified that the plane was okay. And then passengers were boarded, and they headed out. 13 minutes, the pilots just knew something was not right and wanted to come back. But what's emerging right now is there's a technology that was built, known as MCAS. We're going to see it in this particular part 3, built into that airplane because of the special nature of its brand new engines, known as LEAP, the LEAP brand of it, and the way it's mounted, it comes out further than the previous ones. So that would make it that whenever the plane is on a high angle of attack, on a high pitch, it gives it some vibrations, and could likely cause a stall of the airplane. So Boeing built in an anti-stall system into the airplane that will automatically,
ensure that the plane doesn't get to angle of attack.
That's why, command it to take a dive, in order to avoid a stall. But then pilots were not informed. Pilots were not trained with the new technology. We'll see all that.
Okay, now let's start with clip one. Let's start with clip one. That's just a recap of what we have done in the first and second part. This is the part 3 of the Lion Air crash. I'm sure with that brief that he's giving you, you can easily follow through the continuation of the discussion.
That's correct. So preliminary findings from investigation continues. During his last previous flight from Denpasar to Jakarta, the aircraft was said to have suffered a serious incident. The aircraft was said to be shaking and emitting burnt rubber odor in the cabin. The seatbelt sign was said to be on all through the flight. The seatbelt sign, usually when the plane settles in the air, it is turned off so that passengers can feel free, move around, exchange pleasantries, and then you can actually stand on the aisle, and really stretch out and feel good. But this time around, because of the rough nature of that roller coaster flight that they had, the seatbelt was on all through the 1 hour flight. Okay. Yeah. So the seatbelt sign was said to be on all through the flight. Recording of air traffic control indicated that the pilot had made a pan-pan call. Pan-pan call is the second highest emergency call after Mayday. You remember when there is an incident in the airplane or some kind of fault that is life-threatening, pilots are advised to call the Mayday. Once you say Mayday, 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 that's 3 times. All the emergency units get ready for action. Get ready to for search and rescue, because Mayday simply means that
there's an emergency.
We have emergency, and this emergency is life-threatening. It's possible that we may crash, and people may die. And so, for the second call is the pan, which they usually call out 3 times. Pan, and that means that there is an incident or there's an emergency, but this emergency is not life-threatening.
It's not going to be fatal.
That's correct. We must find the nearest place to make an emergency landing and deal with it. And so, let's continue now. Recording of air traffic control indicated that the pilot had made a pan-pan call. Pan-pan is the second highest emergency call after Mayday. The pan-pan call was, however, cancelled later, and the pilots decided to proceed to Jakarta.
But the Mayday call can also be cancelled, right?
I do not think so, because Mayday, before you call out a Mayday, the pilots would have assessed the situation and found the situation quite hopeless, and they are really heading for the terrain, and the flight is as good as doomed, and they're simply saying, "Hey, bye-bye. We're all probably going to be killed." That is the meaning of the Mayday call. But pan-pan is simply saying that we have a technical issue, we must land at the nearest airport, and it's not life-threatening, but there's an issue. So that's the difference between Mayday and pan-pan. Okay, so the pan-pan call was, however, cancelled later, and the pilots decided to proceed to Jakarta. The aircraft's maintenance logbook showed that during that flight, the aircraft suffered an unspecified navigation failure on the pilot's side, while the co-pilot's side was said to be in good condition. This is quite funny, Jojo. I don't know if you remember, I told you a story.
What's happening with the pilot's display? The same thing equally be going on the co-pilot or the first officer. Yes,
they must be synchronized. Whatever this one is reading is exactly what this one. I've experienced that.
Sure.
You remember I told you the story when my wife and I were traveling from Los Angeles to New York, and we had to stop somewhere in Florida because the pilot said his computer was not in sync with his co-pilots. That he thought his own was correct, but the co-pilot's was faulty. But whatever was causing that fault, if not immediately tackled, could get worse and then endanger the flight. So he landed in Florida, and then we were changed to another.
And that means he has to call the Pampa.
Yes, that's correct. So that's correct. In the background of circumstance, he could have called the Pampa. Right. Okay. So further examination on the aircraft's instruments indicated that one of the aircraft's airspeed indicators had malfunctioned for its last 4 flights. Now, here is a point that is really worrisome. The 4 last flights of the aircraft had issues with airspeed indicator. Then you would imagine that plane should have been grounded and a thorough check. You see, it brings you back to what I continue to say to anyone about isolation. I would rather fly a 20-year-old aircraft that is undergone a C or D check, as the case may be, that is due, than a 6-month-old airplane that is due for an air check and it misses that air check. I would rather fly the 20-year-old.
Yeah, but the point here is for passengers. How would they know that the aircraft they are flying? I
agree. They are flying has no means of knowing.
Undergone any of the checks.
It is a moral responsibility for those that are saddled with responsibility of checking these airplanes and working for us at the airports. They have to find themselves that they're bound by the moral duty to do what is right all the time. It's the only way. It's the only way. So, I mean, for this airplane to have had airspeed indicator issues for the last 4 flights, and they were still using the plane, Joe, the least way you can describe it.
So that means in this case, there is no need for the airline to even drag the producers of that aircraft.
No, well, it's a combination of issues. As we go on, you see also, the culpability of the manufacturers. Let's go to clip 2, and then, before time chases us away from here, because we have a couple of photographs. We'll take a look and analyze for our viewers to understand more what we're talking about. Erroneous angle of attack (AOA) indications. 7 days after the crash, Boeing, based on the preliminary information gathered in the investigation, published warnings about erroneous angle of attack indications on cockpit instrument displays of the 737 MAX. Boeing, the manufacturer, called attention to this 7 days after that crash. Okay. Now it says, the report stated that based on preliminary findings, it was believed that a malfunction in the angle of attack sensors could lead the onboard computer to believe that the aircraft was stalling, causing it to automatically initiate a dive. Did you see that? That installation was made there, but nobody knew. So anytime the sensor senses that the thing was having a high angle of attack, it will kick in automatically. The pressing down of the elevators, which will of course tip up the tail and push down the nose of the airplane in order for the airplane to gain some speed and
be at cruising level.
That's correct. But pilots needed to know that auto thing was there, and needed to know how to disengage it, so that if it puts you on a dive and you have gained enough speed, you should be able to quickly turn it off and take back control.
Which means that if it's on auto, you allow it to do those magic itself.
That's why.
But if it's not on auto, it means that you will do it manually.
Oh yes, of course. Pilots are taught to to really reduce their pitch.
But in this case, why should the producer be dragged into it?
We're coming to that. Listen to that, because So the report stated that based on preliminary findings, it was believed that the malfunction in the angle of attack sensors could lead to onboard computer to believe that the aircraft was stolen, causing it to automatically initiate a dive. Boeing urged all airlines operating the Boeing 737 MAX to heed the warnings. Initially, Boeing was said to be against disclosing more details to cockpit crews due to concerns about bugging average pilots with too much information. So Boeing willfully withheld the information because he said you don't want to push too much information to these folks, otherwise you confuse them. And so the attitude to it was that it's perfect technology, it will do its job and keep the plane safe. So why worry? Now they see that's a reason to worry. Nothing can beat the human factor. The human factor, it's all in all. Machines are machines. They can always fail. Technology can always fail.
So is that to say that Boeing has accepted the fact that they also contributed to the crash of Lion Air?
I won't make a conclusion on that. The cops are there to decide for them in Indonesia. So whenever they decide, we'll bring you the information. All right. Okay, clip 3, please. Clip 3. Thank you. Now, angle of attack sensor, single point of failure. You remember when I taught you about single point of failure, when we did instrument, and I gave you a schematic diagram of the meaning of single point of failure. And when you set up an equipment that has a single point of failure, that equipment is dangerous because that means as soon as it fails, everything goes wrong. But if you have multiple points, if this one fails, the other one takes over and ensures that fatality does not happen. So we're going to be looking at the angle of attack sensor, which unfortunately had a single point of failure. It's said to be a design flaw in the Boeing 737 MAX. So that's the topic we're dealing with right now. Now, Boeing 737 MAX is equipped with CFM International LEAP. That's the kind of engine I was talking to you about. You're going to see the photographs and you understand what we're describing. CFM International LEAP engines. Those engines have higher bypass ratio. That I'm going to explain to you as well when I show you the schematic drawings that I have for you here. You have higher bypass ratio and also larger nozzles than the engines of the previous Boeing 737 models. I will show you that in a moment. For this reason, the Boeing 737 MAX engines are placed higher and further forward in relation to the wing than on previous models, thereby destabilizing the aircraft in pitch at higher angles of attack. Those engines destabilize the air because of the way they are mounted and their size. Okay. So in order to deal with this, designers fitted the Boeing 737 MAX with maneuvering characteristics augmentation system known as MCAS. All right. The suspected culprit in the Lion Air Flight 610 crash. That is, that the MCAS is that equipment that triggered on the diving of the airplane when the sensors sense that it had a high angle of attack. Unfortunately, pilots were not trained and they didn't know what was going on, and they just watched their airplane dive into the Java Sea.
And kill innocent 189 people.
Because if they knew, they could have quickly turned it off and taken back control of the airplane, and it would have probably leveled off before it hit water, and then continue from there. Unfortunately, they didn't know what was happening to the airplane. I can just imagine them screaming, oh my God, what's going on here? And then at the end of the day, it slams into water, and
the rest is history.
Slaughters everyone. Yeah. So the suspected culprit in the Lion Air crash. Former Boeing engineers, listen to this, Joe. Former Boeing engineers hold the opinion that nose down command triggered by a sensor single point of failure is a design flaw, especially if the crew is not trained and prepared for it. Boeing engineers admitted that. Okay.
So which that takes me to what I said earlier. It means that they are also one of the factors that led to the death of 189 people.
Courts in
and
Indonesia.
They should pay dearly.
Courts in Indonesia will
No, in
decide
your
that.
own opinion.
I mean, courts in Indonesia will decide that. They will have all the evidence before them to make their decision. We shall await results of further investigations before concluding this topic. So let's take a look at those schematic diagrams. All right, keep this on the screen. Let me explain something to Joe. Joe, that's what we mean by angle of attack. You can see the shape of the wing. See the flow of wind. Normally, when the airplane is level. Okay, come to us. Let me use the miniature here to show our viewers what the drawing means. Let me have a miniature so that we can show what. Now, that thing you saw there is this, airfoil. That's what you saw there. Now, when the plane is level, really tearing away, you find out that air is running over the wing and under, and what's sustaining this, airplane is the Bernoulli's principle, which says that when current of air or even water, whatever it is that is how it moves in current, flowing on a convex surface and another one underneath, that the speed of the flow on top is usually faster than the speed of flow beneath, thereby creating low pressure on top and high pressure, beneath, and that's what gives you your ascent when you are flying and tearing up in the air. Now, if for any reason you have your airplane in this kind of high angle of attack, you dislocate that movement of air. Now, at the point it's like this. See what you have. Just imagine an imaginary line going straight away from the nose of this airplane. If you take the angle to the point of this wing, watch. If you're in this position, if you take this angle, you see it's larger. That's what they mean by angle of attack. Okay? Now, by this, you notice that the wind is no more flowing the way it should. And what happens is this plane, slows down.
That's if it continues.
Yes, if it continues. And as soon as the speed is low, below the minimum speed that keeps this brand of airplane in the air, it stalls. And you know what it does? It starts coming down vertically. And as soon as it starts coming down, no matter how much power you put in your engine, the plane just stops flying. It doesn't fly anymore. The only chance you have is if you are in high altitude and
height advantage.
Happens. Yes, you have height advantage. Then you have to push on your stick, take a dive, gain some speed, pull up, level off, and then begin to rise again. And then you fly away from the stall. Otherwise, if it happens to you at a low level, you are doomed. You must crash.
So in this case, we recommend, or you will recommend as an expert, that pilots should always ensure that they have height advantage each time they're flying.
It doesn't follow, because it depends on where you're going and what levels given to you by control tower, based on the nature of traffic in the area you're overflying. You see, as a pilot, you're really not in charge, so to say. Those are the control tower seeing everyone. You as a pilot moving on your own, you don't have the advantage of seeing everyone and knowing their directions, altitude, and locations. So the control tower gives you your level, and where you must maintain in order to separate you both laterally and vertically, so that there won't be contact with other airplanes in the vicinity. In some areas, like for instance in New York, It's madness. It's madness if you see the number of airplanes within the skies that those individuals there manage. You will be amazed and you wonder how they do this magic of separating those airplanes and getting them all land safely and those take off safely. It's amazing, really amazing. As a matter of fact, I can access it here, but we don't have time to do
that.
Yes, and I'll show you live images of airplanes in the skies of New York right now.
Okay, moving on. Do you have any other diagram to show?
Let's move to the next photograph. Display for us the next photograph so I can quickly give you. So that is what I have just taught you now. You can see that airplane. You can see the angle of attack and the relative wing. That can which can cause it to stall if you go beyond the acceptable limit of the angle. Move to the next photograph. Let's explain further. Unfortunately, I don't think this has to do with the jet engines. And I hope our viewers have seen those things written there. But what's important? Look at the arrows. I'm talking about the bypass ratio. Now, if you look at the intake to our left of the photograph, the engine, the topmost engine, you can see is a larger engine, and then the air taken in, some of them go into the compressor straight in, and the others are going. Can you see an arrow on top, of flow of air? That is the bypass. The whole essence of that bypass is to create fuel efficiency, even though it reduces thrust, the power of engine, but at least it gives efficiency, in fuel consumption, and that's what the Max 8 LEAP engine is built for. Extreme, fuel, or rather low fuel consumption. Okay, so that's the top view of the Max 8. Showing, can you see how the engine is popped out?
Max 8 is the model of the aircraft.
Yes, the one that crashed.
But the particular one that crashed is Lion Air.
No, Lion Air is the airline.
No, it's the airline.
Yes,
no, Lion Air is the airline.
Yes.
The model of that particular flight is
737 Max 8.
Yes, Max 8.
737 Max 8. And that is a sample of the Max 8. But I brought you this photograph for you to see how the engine is popping out so much more than the previous models, and that's why they say that when it is on that high, this kind of angle of attack, it vibrates, and that's why that technology of MCAS was installed by the manufacturers to take care of this situation, in case it's going to create problem during flight. Show us quickly the next photograph. That is the LEAP engine. Can you see how huge and massive that engine is? That's the one they say that it has a high bypass ratio. So all the air sucked in by this fan in front. They don't all go into the compressor. Some of them go from the sides. In what is known as the bypass, ratio, like
to still give the
fuel efficiency. That gives you the fuel efficiency. Okay, so show us some, and then of course the nozzle. You remember the word nozzle, where we use it, and people will wonder what was this? It's simply the casing where engines are tucked in. That's an example of a nozzle. Can you see that? That engine port you're looking at is not necessarily the engine. Look through the hole in front. You see where the fan started.
Sure.
So it's a casing that is housing that engine. Okay?
Housing the one you showed before this one.
That's correct. You got it, Joe. And so that is what is known as, NASA. Okay? Just to be able to explain the technologies that you heard during this program. I think that will be it.
That'll be. But before we go, what I've asked you severally, you just being diplomatic about it and smart about it, pushing it to the courts in Indonesia. But for someone who has so much knowledge when it comes to the issue of aviation, would be able to tell us, yes, on this part, these guys, like you have told us severally, when it comes to the Dana air crash, which of course you were there in the floor of the Senate to give your own account. You believe that it was due to human error.
That's right.
And on this particular one now, the pilot cannot be completely blamed.
Well, yeah.
So if they can't be completely blamed, who do we pass the blame on?
Joe, in case trials, people are given the opportunity to file in their defense. And if you don't hear all the defense that the accused will come up with, it's difficult to really make a categorical statement that this person is wrong. Because more often than not, if you hear only one side of the story, and you don't give yourself a chance to hear the
But why
side.
would you hold back information for
the other side of the story?
for what people paid for?
For instance, for that of Dana, we were all sitting here. We heard all the story, all the sides of the story, and then even when we were at the floor of the Senate during the investigation, questions were asked. Answers were preferred, and so every right-thinking individual that sat in that hall, that they, had some minds to make up, which direction, to steer your decision. So in this case of Lion Air, we're only hearing, some of the outcomes of the investigations carried out. We haven't heard from, from Boeing. It's when this case that has been instituted by one of the families of the passengers, if Boeing eventually comes here to tender its defense, then we'll have opportunity of putting them on the balance, weigh them, and be able to say, hey, Boeing, you were totally wrong. Or, hey, Boeing was not as wrong as we thought. You get the point. So
okay.
We must be patient.
So ITV will be on ground to give you the outcome of that hearing. And your number one aviation freak, Mr. Gordon Ike, who also doubles as a licensed estate surveyor and valuer, will definitely give you what it is. All you need to do is just be glued to ITV, be glued to this morning on ITV. You get every detail, and those who, of course, may be found wanted by the law. This is where we take a quick break. When we come back, the program this morning on ITV continues.